Hello, everyone, and welcome to hell. We're your guides, Jake.
Hannah, hi.
Yeah, this is going to be terrible. This is going to be bad. You guys remember that one time we did that one book? Not the Bible, the other book. The one that was worse than the Bible. Jordan Peterson, the lobster book? Yeah, it was all about lobsters. Like, I learned nothing else but lobster facts. This is this is chapter 1 of that book. And this... I wish there was more lobsters, to be totally honest. There's fewer lobsters in this than there were in the last book, and frankly, it brought. I didn't realize how important the lobsters were to the levity of the conversation. This is just hellish. I out loud made a noise for no one. It wasn't a bit I was doing. My body, upon reading the words that I was reading, went, ah.
That's how I feel all the time.
I know, it was strange.
Today we're going to be starting our series on Dave Rubin's Don't Burn This Book, a book about conservatism. I don't think he would characterize it that way. He considers himself, as far as I understand, as a classical liberal.
Yeah, but he left the left. He also recently said he's no longer an atheist. Although I did believe that he recently said that he has conservative leanings, but I could be wrong. I stopped watching Dave Rubin because I never started. So
I don't trust anyone who calls himself a classical liberal, mostly because everyone up to and including Sargon of Akkad calls themselves that. So
Sargon of Akkad is authoritarian.
Doesn't mean a whole lot. A lot of people on the right like to call themselves classical liberals when they don't want to identify themselves as people on the right because they understand that most of the people in the population rightfully see people on the right in modern day as kind of monstrous and backward. So I guess we're going to start off with the first numbered chapter, and that is It's Time to Come Out. For those of you who don't know, Dave Rubin happens to be a gay man.
He is gay.
Great.
He likes it. He actually mentions blowjobs in here, which is gayer than anything he's ever said.
He does.
That's great. I was actually looking forward to him talking about his personal life. And for I don't know, the first like probably page of a standard sized book, it's just kind of Dave Rubin's life. It still finds a way to be insulting and bad. But I was actually kind of okay with, like, hey, I'm Dave Rubin, and I was in the closet as a man growing up, and it was rough.
He actually did something that Jordan Peterson couldn't make me do throughout his entire self-help nonsense.
Believe he was a human being?
No, although that's true.
Yeah.
But it made me chuckle because he made a joke about... he's both Catholic and Jewish in heritage, and he has both Catholic guilt and Jewish guilt, and the difference, he says, is Catholic guilt is giving a blowjob and worrying about going to hell. Jewish guilt is giving a blowjob and worrying what your mom would think, which I found to be...
You know what, though? 100% chance that he used that and recycled it from his stand-up pre-2001.
Oh, probably. He talks about being a stand-up comedian.
There's he's so bad at this. He found his one good joke, and by good joke, again, it was a chuckle. It wasn't a chortle. It was a ha, and then you move on. You don't think about it again. It doesn't change the way your humor works. That's his tippity top opening stinger for his first book. That is not a good start.
So, without further ado, I guess let's actually dive into the contents of the book. Of course, we're not going to be reading its entirety verbatim. If you want to, you can go check out the book wherever it's sold.
It's available on Amazon, specifically in, like, freedom of politics or something. It's number 1 in a very specific category. He shared it the other day on Twitter.
Sure, but we're going to be going over excerpts from the chapters that we found interesting and worthy of talking about. So without further ado, which I've said
twice or 3
times now,
times, there's no reason to say that. We could just continue having a conversation about it. That's all. We're sure they're here, but it's just you and me. I want to talk.
One.
Well, we were on it. I want to talk about how I want to talk about humanizing Dave Rubin for a second. Can we talk about humanizing Dave Rubin?
Sure.
Gay guy in the closet. Years of repression, okay? And this is in the 90s and early 2000s or whatever. And so I totally get it. And like that was I'm very happy that he came out on the other side of that whole experience. I'm sure being a closeted gay person in the 90s was really fucking rough. And I don't know how he doesn't extend that empathy, because right before that, he talks about how the left has lost its mind, and, you know, they just have a bunch of genders and sexualities. But he doesn't care about that.
Later in the book, based on what I skipped forward to read, he also compares trans people to wanting to be a transformer when
Which
you're
one,
6 years
though?
old. I'm going to say Bumblebee.
Rodimus Prime's the only correct answer. Rodimus Prime. Anyway, he basically opens it up with fuck you the left, but after the fuck you the left part, he talks about being gay, and he talks about like specifically the fact that he had to get like mental health like advisory. He said it didn't work that well for him, but he did say that helped with the joke that you said right there.
Yeah, he said you didn't connect with the therapist.
Yeah.
Which, like, yeah, that happens fine.
Yeah. And then, once I thought he was being a human being, he immediately went to the old well. The well, yeah, you know when you were in high school, and they're like, you gotta have a stinger to make people pay attention. Usually it's a quote from Martin Luther King. Mel Gibson's very good at putting quotes in front of his films, stuff like that. Nope, it's, where were you on 9/11? We're just talking about 9/11, because we gotta suck patriotism dick for some reason.
He does bring up 9/11.
Right away!
And it's like on the same day he comes out, or it's
the
like
day,
right around
the
the
day
same
after.
time?
He came out on September 10th, I guess, of 2001 to a comedian friend.
And then the next day, 9/11 happens, and for some reason, Dave Rubin. And I understand this is another thing that is very human. You correlate things and you feel guilt about things that aren't real. But he like feels bad because he's afraid that 9/11 happens because he likes dick, which honestly.
Maybe
makes somewhat more sense than invading countries that have nothing to do with it, but like still not exactly the most logical thing in the world. It's also interesting to me that he feels the need to bring this up at all, especially in this opening chapter. It brings up this emotional like trauma that a lot of people lived through, and I was alive during 9/11. I remember when it happened, but it didn't emotionally impact me as much because I was younger at the time. But the fact that in this first chapter he's using phrases like America is under attack, 9/11, the towers were, you know what I mean? Very emotionally driven verbiage.
Oh yeah, I guarantee when he wrote this, he turned on old footage on YouTube and was like, I remember when that guy jumped out the fucking window. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just
then Tom Hanks played him in that awful movie.
Tom Hanks played somebody in a movie?
Tom Hanks in incredibly close or extremely loud and incredibly close. Tom Hanks played the Falling Man.
Really? I didn't know that. So, he also talks about, you could tell his influence that he had with Jordan Peterson. I mean, he legitimately says,
he mentions it
later on, that Jordan Peterson is his like mentor, which makes so much sense. But you could tell the effect that Jordan had on Dave while he was writing this, because he says, yeah, I was drinking a lot, lots of bottles of wine, and that was really bad. But to make things worse, I was a pothead. Like, I don't think anybody that's aware of how alcoholism works and how someone who's a pothead works thinks the alcoholic is better to be around.
Yeah, no. As someone who has both partaken in alcohol and marijuana, it's legal in Michigan, I can say that. Alcohol, much worse for you. Not good. No bueno.
No bueno. In moderation, of course, but that's not what we're talking about. He said he started like hallucinating and shit. Very strange. We get past the is there anything you wanted to say about the 9/11 shit after that? Because that was just strange. It was I don't know. It was dumb. And then right after he talks about 9/11, he talks about the 9/11 of people, which are Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, Ben Shapiro, Thomas Sowell, Dennis Prager, Brett Weinstein, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Christina Hoff Sommers, and Peter Thiel. I can't think of a worse list of people to be openly associated with.
He says specifically, quote, but it's also been facilitated, it being his transformation from someone who associates himself with the left to the right. He says it's been facilitated by some of the world's greatest contemporary thinkers.
And those are the people. Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, Ben Shapiro, and all the other ones you said. I could not come up with a list intentionally as wrong
like a joke.
As that list of names.
Right, it reads like a joke.
Dennis Prager.
Like if Big Joel wrote that same thing and tweeted that, that'd be hilarious. You know what I'm saying? Like Big Joel could literally just go, man, some of my politics have been facilitated by some of the world's most contemporary thinkers, Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, like, yeah, and we all go, ha ha, Joel, you silly cat, like your sweaters.
Yeah. Before we move on, I wanted to go over some of the specific quotes from the points up until now because
100%.
Okay. He says at the beginning, you don't need me to go on for 250 pages about how the left has completely lost its mind. You already know this, at least on an intellectual level. By intellectual level, he means viscerally, with your emotions.
Yeah, with your feelings.
That's what people on the right mean when they say intellectual level.
I really hope that he talks about specifically how the left has lost their mind, right? Like, are we going to get into what he thinks the left stood for and how that's changed? Are we going to get any content at all in regards to an argument, or are we just going to get how Dave feels about stuff?
Oh, it's absolutely going to be how Dave feels about stuff. That's all these type of books are. It's, here's how I feel about this topic. Now let me explain to you why you should feel the same way. It's a persuasive essay, more or less. And he goes on to say, this is because, as if I haven't said it on the Rubin report enough, the left is now regressive, not progressive, which is something you'll hear from some of the newer people on the right.
The regressive left.
I find that incredibly confusing when literally they are the ones who are for keeping things the same and not upending traditional structures that might be to the detriment of people in society.
Or for regressing on things that we have come to a social understanding on, like trans rights, for instance.
Trans rights, gay marriage.
Isn't it weird how much I guess it's not weird, how much he's, in his own book, has already pimped the Rubin report? I think he mentions it 3 times in this chapter. 3 times.
I get it, but at the same time, if you don't watch the Rubin report, are you really going to read this book?
That's what I'm saying. Like, right, and also he does say that, like, you've come to this book because you are looking for a way out of the left. No, a lot of people are going to read this because they fucking hate you and think you're a lol cow.
This part's interesting too. I hate this. This is one of his examples of how he believes the left is regressive. What was once the side of free speech and tolerance, the one that said, I may disagree with what you have to say, but I will fight to the death your right to say it, now bans speakers from college campuses, cancels people if they aren't up to date on the latest genders, and forces Christians to violate their conscience. I need to take this one thing at a time. Firstly, speakers at college campuses, that's not a free speech issue. That's entirely about...
that's the market.
The people who are there, who pay for the college, not wanting shitty assholes coming to their campus.
Free market.
You're not being censored by the government. You're just not allowed to come to this specific institution and peddle your bullshit. Secondly, cancels people. Again, this isn't a free speech issue. Generally, again, within the market, if people find someone or some product or some company associated with the product or person to be morally opposed to what they believe, they will often boycott that product or try and avoid that celebrity or whatever. This is just part of market forces.
Wait a second. Right. Hold on. Isn't what we did with Colin Kaepernick also canceling?
No, see, He's black.
He is black.
And
that's true.
He kneeled for the magic song, so we gotta shut him. And forces Christians to violate their conscience. That's incredibly hypocritical coming from a gay married man.
Well, he is no longer an atheist, so...
Forcing Christians to violate their conscience, aka not allowing people to discriminate based on their religious beliefs.
We can't, though. It's unconstitutional. So I think he might be talking about the gay cake people? Maybe? But they won!
They won that case.
And I tend to agree with that because of the argument on art. Not necessarily the rest of it, but, like, you could argue that, like, you know, forcing someone to depict art in a certain way is bad.
I think,
so, you know, reasonable enough.
We've talked about this cake thing in the past.
Yeah.
I think they should be able to dictate what kind of cake they make, not who they make it for.
Yeah. I think isn't that how the ruling came? I could be wrong how the ruling came down.
I'm not exactly
That's
sure,
how I interpreted it, but I'm not a Supreme Court justice.
But the point is, yeah, you haven't boofed nearly enough to be qualified for that.
I could try to boof a little bit more. Do you have a funnel?
Not one I want you to use for that.
We can clean it after. It's fine.
I'm
gonna put
Hannah's
vodka in my butthole. So, continuing on, is there anything else from this that he really says? A lot of it's straw man. I don't know who he's arguing against. Most of this seems to be. I don't think he's ever talked to a left-leaning person in his life. I know he says he does, but he doesn't.
And he characterizes it by saying, rather than being all-inclusive and fair, the left is now authoritarian and puritanical. It's replaced the battle of ideas with a battle of feelings, trading honesty with outrage. This from the people who got mad that Jesus wasn't on a Starbucks cup. Who gets mad when... give me another example.
Oh, yeah, okay. Gets mad when someone wants to wear a dress but has a pee-pee.
Gets mad when, again, Colin Kaepernick kneels for the magic song.
Yeah, gets mad
when a razor company makes an ad being like, hey, maybe don't be an asshole.
Gets mad when medical professionals across the world say, stay inside a bit. Like, this is not authoritarianism. Honestly, I took a compass test. I was one block above full libertarian, because there's some things I think need structure, mostly the government, and I was almost all the way to the left, but just like knocking on the door of socialism. Like I'm not quite there. Like and these people are so much like who was it? It was Ben Shapiro took the compass test and was like, I can't believe people call me literally Hitler, and he was like 2 tick marks away from Hitler on the compass test. It's like, you're fucking authoritarian. You are objectively authoritarian. Authoritarianism is not, hey, it's mean for you to say that, you're being indecent to people. That's just social. That's just a social thing. No one is really saying, in contemporary progressive circles at all, including people you think are far left, like Bernie Sanders and AOC, people like that, no one is saying, hey, if you say the N-word, or if you are like, no, the gays can't marry, you should go to prison. Nobody's like that. All they're saying is, you should accept the fact that that is a social tax that you are having to pay for your bad opinion that most people disagree with. Having social currency is not authoritarianism. No one's taking your shit. No one's taking your freedom. You have the freedom of speech, but you do not have the freedom from consequence.
I can give a specific example of that. As a trans person, I see people use the T slur sometimes, which isn't cool. However, if the government were to tomorrow say, hey, here's a list of words that are banned, and on the list, let's say, is like the N-word and the T-word and a bunch of other racial slurs,
stuff like that.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I would be against that law.
Yeah, I'd be against it too.
However, if you go around saying those things about people to people, don't be surprised when people don't want to put up with your shit.
Don't be surprised if the market doesn't want to employ you. It's free market. I'm fine with that. I'm very comfortable with the market adjusting. The social market exists. And this is a thing that they totally ignore. The social market exists. And often it is tied to the actual fiscal market. Like, sometimes you're going to lose money if you're a cunt. That's just how it works. Don't be that way. Don't do it.
There's a reason that rainbow capitalism exists, despite the fact that I find the concept fucked up. It's because people like to put their money into organizations that follow the same, or at least present the same moral strictures that they abide by.
Mm-hmm. And part of living under capitalism is you reach full equality when you are exploited by the capitalist overlords that rule our lives. So, is there anything else before we get to his stupid points?
Let me see.
There's so many things. He says on the...
Yeah, I do have one thing. Maybe you don't want your friends knowing you read books by Jordan Peterson, or newspaper columns by Brett Stevens, or you're ashamed of watching YouTube's The Rubin Report, which is hosted by this very scary but quite dapper Dave Rubin. If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then I'm afraid you're living in fear of the woke machine. Yes, you're politically closeted, and it's time to come out. This book will show you how. If you're embarrassed to talk to people about the media you consume...
Yeah.
Perhaps you should self-examine and determine why that is.
I have never considered the fact that someone watches Fox News the same way 13-year-olds watch Skinamax at 3 a.m. With their finger right on the back button, one hand on their ding-dongs, one hand on the back button, just waiting in case Mom walks in, because, you know, Mom's still around.
That's how you wind up hitting the back button and your parents find you with your dick in your hand watching Home Improvement at 2 a.m.
Have you heard the sounds he makes? So, I also thought this was very funny. He basically says, those people that we named in that big list of great thinkers, they too came out of the political closet to help me see that tribalism is dead. Have you met yourself?
He literally starts this chapter by talking about how crazy he thinks the left is. That's literally an example of tribalism.
What? It's just wild to me. They have no fucking, like... they have no authenticity. They have no, like... I don't know, there's, like, nothing there. It's a grift. It's full grift. Anyway... This book is your 10-step guide for political authenticity. Oh, see, he says authenticity. In it, you will learn how to. And then we have these. We'll talk about these point by point. We won't necessarily have to read the words underneath them, unless they provide better context. Some of them are fluff. But the first one is embrace your wake-up call. It's the catalyst that brought you to these pages in the first place. No, I just think you're hilariously dumb and vapid, Dave. That's why I'm here. Why are you here? Why are you? Yeah, you.
Oh. Well, I like to eat, and people seem to enjoy these videos. So
there we go. Eating is good. So you're here for the cheese, and I'm here for the catharsis. These are both valid. Think freely or die. You're going to get a crash course in classically liberal principles that stand the test of time, like race realism, sexism, transphobia. You're gonna learn that capitalism is a victimless system. Hey, what?
When he says think freely, he means think how I think.
Yes.
That's good.
Okay. Stop worrying about whether you're a Nazi. Hey, if you are worried that you might be a Nazi, don't stop dwelling on that. Really, really consider if you're a Nazi. And then talk to one of us. And we'll confirm it.
Are you an ethno-nationalist? Congratulations. You've qualified for the title of Nazi.
Isn't it disgusting and sad that Ben Shapiro is of the people that were on that list, is probably the closest to an actual Nazi? Like, I know that word actually does. His point is that people use it as a slur. Sometimes it is overused. I will say that if someone likes, I don't know. If they're a landlord, they're not necessarily a Nazi. They could be a bag of shit, but they're not necessarily a Nazi, right?
No.
A Nazi.
Nazi is a specific authoritarian.
And so I partially agree with part of the sentiment that is in this, that it is overused. The other part of me is like, no, please, if you're a Nazi, consider it. So for our people here, our left-leaning fans, I will say, Nazi probably has to be an ethno-nationalist with authoritarian leanings. That's pretty much.
And if they're into the Jewish question stuff, that's a ding, 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 bingo.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be groypers and coomers and stuff like that. They're gonna crypto it, but it's not gonna be like. You know what? I actually met a Nazi the other day, I saw them online, encountered them online. That was like super honest about it. That was just like, hey, I just don't like fucking the coloreds or something. And I was like, you know what? I'm refreshed. It's weird.
It's so rare. It takes like 3 hours of conversation to get one of these people to actually talk about the fact that they want like racial
just talk about
it.
Why don't you talk about it?
They know because they know it's A, socially unacceptable, and B, they'll get their ass kicked the second they talk about it.
Exactly. So like
ethno-nationalism is a completely emotionally driven desire.
For the record, I'm not calling Dave an ethno-nationalist. I don't think he is an ethno-nationalist. I do think he is a conservative grifter, however. So moving on. Check your facts, not your privilege. I think both is probably ideal. I don't think he understands what people mean by check your privilege, right? So when someone says check your privilege, how do you interpret it?
It basically means, hey, have you considered that the viewpoint from which you're looking at this issue is completely different than the people who this issue impacts more greatly?
Wow, I couldn't have said it better, and I would have said almost exactly the same thing. That's beautiful. You did a great job. Everyone, give Hannah some praise in the chat, because that was perfectly done. That was a perfect dismount. You stuck the landing. That's everything that you need to know. And I don't think he understands that sentence. Like, if he heard that sentence, I think his brain would stop working. I don't think Dave can comprehend the words, the very easy words that you just said. Like, for instance, if I was going to talk about how gay people ought to act, Dave would very rightfully be able to tell me to check my privilege. Because maybe, just maybe, I don't know how it feels to want to suck dicks and have to hide, or just like guys in general. You don't have to suck dicks. I'm making a joke, but like it's like I don't know how that feels. So I have a certain privilege about not having to be in the closet as a straight. Although apparently I am vilified in all scenarios and am the bad guy. I'm actually the victim here. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Well, he wrote it down in the book several times in this first chapter. I am the bad guy. You can.
I want to read an excerpt from this because I find it interesting and telling and awful advice for anyone who finds themselves gravitating towards the right.
Go for it.
This is under the never surrender to the mob.
Which is next. Never ever surrender to the mob.
Once you have the facts, it'll also be much easier to resist the outrage mob. Currently, one of the key tricks the mob uses is to keep you second-guessing yourself, something that's quite easy to do when you don't know what you're talking about in the first place. If you're telling the truth, though, and keeping your cool, you can not only stand up to the mob, but also stare them down. At times, it'll seem like your entire life is about to become undone, but the secret of the mob is that it's always looking for new prey. It's a little dog with a loud bark, and eventually, if you don't give it what it wants, in this case, your apology, your surrender, it'll quickly get bored and move on to the next target. In the midst of this, you'll find out who your friends are, either through their support or their attacks, and you'll come out stronger. Know that and don't be afraid. Here's the thing, though. Socialization dictates that sometimes if you start down a path of behavior that is detrimental to both yourself and others around you, your friends might be like, hey, dude, you're being kind of, let's give an example, homophobic, transphobic, I don't know,
racist.
Maybe whatever the thing may be.
Yeah.
And that person can fully say, no, fuck you, I'm going to do what I'm going to do,
100%.
and that's fine. But he's interpreting this as the mob moving on, as opposed to the fact that people want to keep people, kind to each other, and if someone doesn't heed that and continues to be obstinate in the face of the fact that everyone is telling them, hey, your behavior is not okay, that society moves on without them, but they deem that as the mob finding a new target. No, they've just given up on you. Your friends and family and people who were trying to warn you that this would happen, that's what happens.
Yeah.
People move on because you're being obstinate about your shitty opinions.
I also think that it's interesting to me that someone on the right, and this happens constantly, if people get angry at something they say, surely it's not because the thing they said is wrong. It's only because the mob just likes being mad. It's just people like being mad at Dave Rubin. The reason Dave Rubin gets flack is not because Dave says incorrect or stupid things. It's because the mob is incorrect and stupid and has nowhere to channel that. Like, what? How can you look at criticism every single time and just go, nope, no way, not me, I didn't say that. Like, this channel is a great example of over time getting criticized, looking at it, changing viewpoints, and making long-term changes that, you know, like things we wouldn't do anymore. Like, I don't know, like there's language that we've used in the past that we wouldn't use in the future, and things we've said in the past that we don't stand by anymore because we've come around and listened to other people's arguments and listened to, you know, how it affects someone. And it's not like we've been the edgiest channel in the whole world or anything, and by far there are more problematic places, but even so, we have examples of this, and it's not hard to do. It might be hard right in a moment, right? But it's not hard long term if you listen to people in good faith. And that's a thing that people constantly, it's so strange, people constantly say that the left, mostly people on the right say this, people on the left are in echo chambers, right? People on the left are in echo chambers. I don't know a group of people more masochistic than really politically involved left-leaning people. We consume so much right-wing content. It's borderline self-harm for some people. Like this I don't even understand. It's crazy. Again, here we are reading Dave Rubin's book. Next up, Jesus Christ. Stop hating America, the West, and straight white men. I don't know who on the left, like, I mean, there are things to hate about these things from time to time, but I don't think anybody's like, fuck America in general. What they're saying is, fuck the power structures that are currently in charge of America. And a lot of the people that are politically active on the left don't hate America because they want it to change. If you want something to change, it's not because you hate it. It's because you want it to be better than it is. Like, it's like seeing a car without any safety devices in it. No airbags, no fucking seatbelts. The dashboard is made of shards of glass, and going like, you know, I think we can make some changes here, and here's all the changes I want to make, and they go, no, but maybe seatbelts. It's like one step at a time.
I have an example that might not an example, a metaphor that kind of helps illustrate this. People on the right love America like a 3-year-old loves their mom.
Yeah,
like mommy can do no wrong. She's
my dad can beat up your dad.
Yeah. And they don't see it in a 3-dimensional, realistic way. It's black and white.
Yeah.
Someone on the left more so sees how they view America as maybe a spouse. There's someone you support and someone you are in a relationship with, but you want to improve them, and you want them to improve you, and you want to work together to build a better future. And I think that's a healthier, more realistic way of looking at the world, as opposed to this America. I gotta read you what he says in this. It's insane.
Well, let's hold on for 1 second because I wanted to expand on that. There's also this belief that the left wants America to take care of them. That is not a belief that I think any left-leaning American has ever spoken to me. That's not something that I hold deep in my heart and I'm just being crypto about it. That's not something that our group of peers talk about.
JFK's like most famous speech includes the line, "Ask not what this country can do for you, but ask what you can do for this country."
So for me,
it's a collectivist way of thinking.
Right, for me, it's not about I want America to give me health care. It's I want all of us to give each other health care, because America is us. We are it. That's the thing. We are not these individuals that America of this concept rules over. The only reason this concept exists is because we exist, and we just want it to be better. We don't want a nanny state. Personally, I want them out of our lives more than Republicans do. I don't want them to have the Patriot Act to you. I don't want them to have and some of these things you make arguments for, but I don't want them to have as much of small business tax money, for instance. I don't want people that fill out 1099s that are contractors not getting the benefits of a normal employee, even though they put the same or more amount of hours into that work, as opposed to an employee that gets 20 hours a week. So, like, it's stuff like this. Like, I don't want to have to count on the country. I want the country to be there as a backup plan that's always consistent. And right now, that's not a thing.
So here's what he says about America. You'll know America isn't perfect, nor could any nation ever be, but that she has granted more people more freedoms than any other country in the history of the world.
Oh boy. She sure says she does a lot.
No, this is a ridiculous statement. We're one of the last countries to make slavery illegal in the Western world.
Yeah, but we beat racism in 1968. And then we beat it again in, 2004? Or was it 2008? When was Barack Obama in? 2008. God damn.
America was also built upon, the destruction of the Native American culture all across the country and its people.
If that said white people, it'd be probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
White landowning men.
Yeah, no, it's done great. Like, I feel pretty free here, but like I could walk around in Cleveland smoking a doob and not get arrested. So, I don't think Ohio has legal weed because it sucks. Fuck Ohio. Anyway, we also hate the West. I don't know that we hate the West. What do we hate about the West? I think we certainly are more comfortable in the West and with Western cultural norms, with societal changes, with the zeitgeist of the West. Like, I think by hating the West, you mean we don't hate other cultures that aren't the West, that don't identify as such. I don't think...
He thinks that saying that something can be improved is saying that it's awful.
It's awful for some people. Like, absolutely, yeah. But it's not awful for everybody, and that's the things you have to take, right? And that's the discussion, and I don't think Dave Rubin's willing to have that discussion at all. Like, if you asked him, what's the worst part about America, he would say the left censoring people. No, but what's the worst part about America? Because those are people in America. What's the worst part about the institutions of America? Like, when can we get to that discussion? Because he doesn't talk about that. And also, straight white men are everybody hates them. As you guys know, as the token straight white man here, I am constantly just under attack for myself being me. Every day, I feel more and more uncomfortable. Oh boy, the gay brown people are coming for me.
Look at the cis straight guy likes putting his penis inside lady holes.
Oh, I sure do. Pick one. Yep. So, yeah, it's obviously not true. I don't think straight white men are disenfranchised in any way that... Like, they definitely perpetuate it themselves, though. Like, I could understand if you are in a... Like, if you're in an incel group or if you're in a white nationalist group, you could buy into that. But that's not actually happening. That's just things that you're taught to believe are happening or aren't. Like... I don't know. Just because Black Panther came out doesn't mean that they're not going to make movies for you anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
one out of the
it's fucking wild.
Superhero movies that came out this year has a black cast.
And having a critical lens looking at people that represent your demographic, like in I don't know, the Watchmen series that came out on HBO. Where there was a white nationalist group that was trying to, affect some things. It's a very good series. You guys should watch it. That's not a commentary on you specifically. It might be if you're a fucking Nazi, but it's not if you're just me. Like, I watched that and enjoyed it greatly. I found that and I like things like Get Out, for instance. Fantastic movie that I think is pretty obviously praised for its good work. But it was really interesting. I had never considered before that movie how white people covet black bodies. Like, obviously in a twisted, fucked up way they show this, but the commentary itself is just like is I'm gonna do a movie review on Teen Wolf, that will examine this exact same thing, and it's going to blow your fucking mind. Don't cover your head in shame. It's going to blow your mind.
Are you gonna try?
It's not. I'm going to try. I'm going to. It is.
Are you going to illustrate the fact that Michael J. Fox's transformation into a werewolf is an allegory for blackness?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is. And it is. But I'm just saying, like these are things that you don't have to take personally. You can just look at them and go like, ah, shit. I think that probably does happen. You know what I mean? And I want to make sure that I'm not part of the problem and examine to see if you are. Luckily, I don't think I coveted black bodies in the way that that movie was talking about, but I sure did ask myself if I was, and I think that's fine, right? I think it's reasonable to understand that, like, I don't know, that you're an imperfect being, and your being white doesn't necessarily have to do anything with like how you feel, but your socialized experience along with being white will inform the person you're going to be, because it's just how society has unfolded. You're not inherently different, but yet you are. Isn't it weird? It's kind of interesting, and we should I don't know, we should be more interested in that kind of shit. I don't know why you gotta take it so personally. Learn to spot fake news. Hannah, I found it. This book. Do we need to talk about that anymore? He just yells at Vox and BuzzFeed and CNN. You know, he says all of the things. He basically sucks Donald Trump a little bit, which is fine.
Interestingly, he lists, like, again, you said Vox, BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, New York Times, CNN. To an extent, sure, I get it. All media is biased to one extent or another, and I really
Fox
don't like
News?
CNN. He doesn't mention Fox News or The Blaze or anything like that.
Does he think Fox News is good? Because I know he mentioned it earlier.
I don't know.
I mean, does he? Do people on the right honestly think Fox News isn't just opinions?
I don't know.
Because that's the argument they make when they get sued.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, find a mentor.
And you know who his mentor is?
In left-leaning circles, this is a sensei or a senpai. Just so you guys understand.
You'll also hear the lessons I was taught by my friend and mentor, Jordan Peterson, the psychology professor and global phenomenon, and now maybe a vegetable. I don't know.
So I guess
I added that last part.
I guess you have to find a mentor. I don't really understand. Like, of the things on this list, this is the least political. I don't really understand what finding a mentor. Who do you need to? Why don't you talk to a variety of people? Why don't you talk to people on the left to determine what you don't like about it? Have you considered, Dave, speaking to someone that disagrees with you politically to determine whether or not you actually do disagree and why? What a shocking revelation. And then lastly, move on with your life. Basically just fucking be the conservative on the Facebook group that says my family won't talk to me. I'm eating Hungry Man for Thanksgiving.
The last one I actually agree with, which is, I know you just said that, but basically he's saying put the politics back in the box when it's not time to be about politics, which is something I have a problem with doing.
It depends on the politics, though, because there's some politics that like we could talk about healthcare. I'm fine with pocketing healthcare or border control or I don't know, different policies. But when you're like being a bigot, it's almost always social. I don't know any other politics besides social that I shut people out for. Like I have no tolerance for, like, I'll talk to them about it, but there's a certain point when you got to be like, okay, you're just a racist or you're just, whatever. And like, again, that's not saying
you can't be tolerant of intolerance.
Yeah, and that's not saying that everybody on the right is a racist or a homophobe or a transphobe. There's lots of people that lean towards libertarian, but a lot of the people that lean towards libertarian on the right fucking hate Dave Rubin. So I've talked to a lot of right-leaning libertarians. Most libertarians tend center if they're even right-leaning. They just don't like things like socialized medicine or something like that. But socially speaking, I mean, we're pretty much on the same wavelength with most of those people. But he talked to Blair White once, so obviously. And she's not at all transphobic, so so is there anything with that last little bit that you wanted to talk about? Because otherwise he's just basically, hey, the last line is all that I care about, because it's just so fucking, it makes me want to die. It makes me want to die.
I'll just read the last paragraph because I think that's
okay.
Don't burn this book may not usher in world peace, balance the national debt, or improve your sex life, but while those are worthy pursuits, that's not the goal. Instead, I want to champion the values that keep people safe, sane, and free. The reason these shared values are under threat. We currently live in a time when people from the world's freest societies are afraid to speak up for fear of an outrage-fueled mob.
Wait, let's stop there. Are people afraid of speaking up, do you think?
I'd hope if their opinions are like, oh, we should have an ethno-state.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the case.
Or people who are like, hey, I don't care if cops shoot people. Those people should fear, like... you know what? I really... idiots.
This is so sad, but I kind of wish one person, not fatally, one person in those protests got shot. Just like winged or something. And then they could be like, well, do Blue Lives Matter? I want to see where that goes, you know what I mean? Where does their rhetoric go once these far-right extremists start getting shot at by the people they used as political linchpins? I'm very interested. And again, I don't hope anyone got hurt, but one of those guys with the bulletproof vest that they didn't need. Shot right in them, Knocked the wind out of them or some shit. Or shot in the arm. I don't know, they don't need an arm.
Sure, these people can be intimidating, but if they haven't stopped me, then they shouldn't stop you.
Okay.
In fact, the world desperately needs people like you, unafraid of the truth and brave enough to stand up for it, no matter the consequences.
What's the truth, though? Is it tantamount to medical consensus and scientific proofs, or is it just how they feel about stuff?
It's whatever Dennis Prager pays him to say is the truth.
Oh, I thought it was the Kochs, but it could be Dennis Prager, too. He does both.
Gotcha. All right, now let's get to it, you racist, sexist homophobes.
Ooh, snap! Edgy! Got him! Because they're not those things. Nobody that reads Dave Rubin's book, there are zero sexist, racist, or homophobes that will read this book. Zero. Fact. That's the end of the first chapter. There are multiple chapters. I don't know how is it. Are there 10 chapters, or are there a bajillion chapters?
There's 10 chapters,
and they're broken up.
But then some of them have sub chapters. For instance, Think Freely has sections for drugs, gay marriage, immigration, abortion, free speech, gun control, trans issues, in which he calls it the trans fad.
The trans fad.
Which is one of my least favorite ways of discussing the issue.
Well, no, your existence is just like a Furby or a Beanie Baby.
I was gonna say like
Tamagotchi.
Fidget spinner.
Or that. Fine. That's fine. I'm a kid of the 90s.
Ooh, maybe they can replace my penis with a fidget spinner.
Well, I was thinking, again, I went back to Furby. I think that'd be more close. Did you actually see that weird animal that was going around recently? You see that shit? It was strange. It was strange and weird, and I didn't like it. It was like an underwater vagina. I'm pretty sure people have fucked it. Anyway, I was thinking you could get one of those. It's not a fad, but if you wanted to look fearsome. Before in between now and when you can afford surgery, you could have like a maw, and then you could run at people. You could run at transphobes with it. That'd be fun. Frankly, I would get a lance and a horse, but and start lancing transphobes. What'd you say? I just imagined the It's Ma'am lady. Triumphant return. It's Ma'am, and then lancing transphobes. She should come back. Where's she been? She needs some support. Let's get her a lance and full plate medal.
So I guess that's the end of the first chapter. This one's, I think, going to be longer than the Jordan Peterson one.
Because, well, it's going to talk about actual things. So we're going to have to talk about drugs. We're going to have to talk about gay marriage and immigration and abortion. And we'll go through all of those. So I think we're going to do this at least once per week, but maybe multiple times per week. It might just dominate my fucking life. Because he writes, this is not as exhausting as Jordan Peterson to read, but it is kind of more exhausting to listen to. I can't really express how I feel about this book besides that noise I made at the beginning. So yeah. This is not going to be a fun time, but we're going to do it for you. Okay? So make sure to send this to Dave Rubin, who is an idiot. Make sure to send it to him.
Oh God.
Debate me, Dave. You won't do it, bitch.
Why you gotta be the debate me, bro?
He won't do it. He won't. He won't do it.
You have a million things you could be. Don't be this.
Debate me, bro.
Fuck. All right. You can always support the show on Patreon. We have a link in the description. You can support my transition fund, which is almost to its goal, actually. We're like less than 1,000 away, something like that.
What are you, some sort of socialist?
So thank you. I wish that way my medical bills would be paid for by the state and by the taxes and stuff.
Terrible. Dave Rubin taught me that true freedom is suffering in your body you don't want.
You can always...
That's not liberty.
You can always follow us on Twitter at Hannah Reloaded for myself.
At Papa Bird Jake for me. And if you like this kind of thing, I do it all the time on twitch.tv/actualjake. Some people think I play video games. I never play video games. I only yell at right-wingers. Like, literally, that's my thing. I just yell at them. We just sitting there for 3 hours, and it's just varieties of me going, ah! That's it.
So, until next time, I'm Hannah.
Jake. What was that? Was that a wave? Is that how you wave?
It was just
Is that how you wave?
That wasn't a wave.
What was it? Was it just like a... You're dismissed. You are dismissed. You should get a... Ooh, you should get a scepter. Do you have a scepter?
I don't.
You could get a scepter in one hand.
I have one. I actually have one at your house.
You do! I'll get you the scepter. I'll hold my Perrier bottle upside down. You can have a scepter here, and then you could just go, you are dismissed. And we could dismiss the audience like this from now on. Like an empress.
Click on one of these boxes, people.
Well, I'm the court jester, so you have to be important. Those boxes are all over there, and you can't see them. I don't know why you're hamming at the boxes. This is
verisimilitude.
People understand how post works. Okay, all right.
Verisimilitude.
It's a good word.